Hello everyone, and welcome to Double O'Neill. My name's Tris, and I'm going to talk to you about this wonderful little loco that I've had fun building up. The necessity of this happening was partly to have it running better on the narrow gauge track, so I wanted to run DCC through the loco, and also I'd made this body design a long time ago on CAD. I built the model, I was pretty pleased with it at the time, it was my first attempt. But over time I realised it was kind of a bit short in regards to other details, like masses of rivet detail missing to make it look kind of realistic. The rivets that were on it, a bit too chunky. And as a runner, it wasn't always the best, so running it backwards and forwards, it ran okay, you know, I was kind of happy with it. But on my track up in the loft, it struggled, especially when it lost power. So I wanted to go DCC so I could put a stay alive on there and improve things. So this is the loco that was in DC. I'll be planning now to get rid of this body and making a nice fresh one, adding a lot more detail on it. I had moulded smoke box door handles, handrails and all sorts. This decoder is a Zimo MX616R decoder. It's very small. It comes with wires on this one, and I need to lose some of them and I'll keep some of the others. It comes with the kind of the black and red, which go to the wheels, and then the orange and grey, which go to the motor. I cut off the ones that I don't need, but I'm keeping the blue one because that goes to the stay alive, and I'll also need to connect up to the common point for the stay alive. Stay alive isn't just putting a capacitor on this unit, it doesn't have a built-in charge unit, so you have to connect up this kickstart, this charge circuit basically, and that lifelink, I called it kickstart, it's lifelink, and this is by U-Choose, and yeah, so I get this fitted and it'll go in. The capacitor is a tantalum one, it's tiny. I don't know how it compares to a normal capacitor that you would see, but I'm going to go with what I've got. I don't have a lot of room inside the loco, though if I did redesign it I could have more. And so it was a simple process really of just connecting things up. So I put a white wire on the common point and then the blue wire connected up to where it was before. I desoldered it by accident when trying to do the white one. Then connect it to the charge circuit, so those two pickup points, and then we connect it to the tantalum capacitor, which does all the work of adding a little bit more charge to the kind of basically when you lose power from the track, it supplies the power for a moment, and it is only a moment. I feel that if I did this again, I would put a larger capacitor on here. But this is loco chassis that I'm working with. It's an Ibotane chassis. You can see all the pickups here. I've removed them from where they connect to the motor, and now I'm putting the wires on there. The Ibotane brand isn't around anymore, it's Italian, but this chassis looks very familiar. When you look at the Fleischmann 7000 chassis, it looks really, really similar. So I'm tempted to buy one day, but as you can see here, it doesn't always run very well. We have to have quite a bit of weight on it. You know, if I did this again, if I had some way of having a white metal body made of my design, that would make this model run a lot better again. But on this flat track, on this flat board, it works well. And actually I have tested it up on my loft layout, and it doesn't really improve it too much more because my track laying is poor. It's not flat, it's twisted, it's going around lots of curves. It's a hard time. So, you know, if you had more wheels on your wagon, you'd probably be right, small contacts, but here you add 20 grams, the loco works better. These are just some little car wheel weights to go on there, just to see. I'm not being too aggressive and trying to damage the coder there, but with that out of the way, let's get the body ready. I've added way more detail on this one, and I'm really happy with it. I spent quite a bit of time just trying to make some rivet work look really realistic compared to what you'd see in real life examples. This is a fictitious design. I went freelance on this, and I love the pannier look. So I'm going to add some medium handrail knobs, which I got these from Comet Models. Actually, I don't know if this came from Wizard Models. I kept confused, but basically you get the smoke box door handles and those handrail mounts. And I just drill out the holes. I already have holes on the print, but I have to open them up slightly because the print doesn't always make a perfect hole, and you ask for 0.5 and you might get 0.2 just because of how it works out in the printing process. Everything else seems to be alright. Now gluing these in, just using regular super glue, but try and make sure the hole that's in the side of it is lined up with the one above it. Otherwise you're going to have to move it later and kind of unstick it effectively. But they're all in. On the back, I'm not going to have these. I'm just going to have some little bits of, I think it's 0.3mm thick nickel wire, and very simply bend them, cut them to size, drop them in, and put a bit of super glue on the back. I use a slightly thicker super glue by Rocket Glue, and yeah, the Rocket Glue works great. Really appreciate that thicker viscosity compared to some of the runnier glues out there, which the glue goes everywhere but the place you want it. After that, I'm using that same wire to poke through these offset handrail mounts, and yeah, put a little bit of glue on one of them to hold it on, then I snip it off, and I repeat that over the whole model. It's really simple, really easy, and you should have a go. If you've got a model that needs more detail, these add so much to the look of it. And actually, once this comes together, you've got a 3D printed model, you've got the other little parts on it, starting to look pretty tidy. After that, I just want to put on the smoke box door handles, and that would be nice. These are a little bit tricky, and I did shorten the length of the handles. So I poke on the nose piece, which is nice and smart. I poke on the other one, and then the top one on top, and put a bit of glue on there, and it holds it in place. And I chop off the excess as well on the end. But these were 5mm, I made them 3. After this, I want to primer it. I'll use white, and I dust it over until I'm happy. I kind of don't go crazy on it and start plastering one area. I just do it so I notice that a layer has gone on, and it might look kind of spread across it, but you keep working it over until the whole thing becomes white, and you've got something that your paint's going to stick to nicely. The metal parts are even more important for that. After that, I painted Great Western Railway green, but I did introduce some malachite green when I did this. That's why it's a little bit brighter, because I always find you look at the real life examples and then you paint it with what's meant to be the same paint colour, and the tone is always, I find, a bit dark. Yet I do see some models that are out there that you can buy slightly, that lighter tone. So I thought myself, I will go down that route of having a mix. So kind of, let's say I had 20 or 30% of the malachite in there. And it's come out alright. I'm pretty happy with it. Maybe it isn't the right tone, but I can always do another one of these another time if I was really upset by it. If not, I'll enjoy it and appreciate my tone that I have here. I'm just adding it on layer by layer. I've done kind of 2 or 3 layers until I've covered everything. Once that's done, I get some black paint out. It's by Vallejo. It's just their black paint. I can't remember if it's a flat black, but I just work my way around all the areas that need to be done and just take my time, because I don't want to go on top of the green that I don't want to have covered, because you know what it's like, you have to touch things up. But if you do, very simply, just get a wet brush and you work it off, and it does come away. It honestly does. If there's a good coat on there and the surface isn't too rough, it'll come off nicely. So I just work it around, do the chimney, do the front, do the running plate, and as well as the rear, kind of the step on the rear. Not that I think you probably even need a step on a narrow gauge engine, but there's one out of courtesy. I guess if you've got a small kind of, step, then you'd probably appreciate this a little bit more. If I did these again, I'd probably make these more detailed, but they are what they are. Then I use some flat red by Vallejo. Again, I like my Vallejo paints. It's all acrylic that I'm using, and I work my way around. You also spot that I've used some brass paint to paint the chimney top, as well as the safety valve on the back. Just taking my time with all these things. The red, I've got a nice thin coat on, so I always water it down, and I come back in later, so you can keep your detail, but come back in it looking nice. And then on the chimney, I now paint it a copper colour, so then it's got the correct colour. Thought I'd start with the gold as a nice base layer, and then we'll come back in with the copper afterwards. Now I need a roof. This is off the 3D printer. That body was 3D printed. You've all seen a bit of 3D printing, and there's a little bit here. I thought I won't go into town on that, because you might get a little bit bored. But we make it, we clean it off, and then I put it in a UV bath, which is just UV light. And we leave it for, I leave it for like 3-4 minutes. You know when you've left it in for too long, because it's got a funny smell to it, as if you've overcooked it. And I don't know if it makes it a bit too brittle. But after that, I didn't even bother priming this. I went straight on with the black. Thought, why not? I guess if I want a smoother coat and get rid of any details or blemishes that came from 3D printing, a primed coat and maybe rubbing down would improve it. Fine. After that was all done, the painting is pretty much complete. I'm going to add my Press Fix Great Western Railway transfers by HMRS. These are nice to use because it doesn't involve having the item sitting in a plate of water and then waiting for it to come off and then delicately pushing it onto the surface. On this, you put it on, it's slightly sticky. You sit it onto the surface where you want. You can still manipulate it so the writing's sitting right, and you can peel it off. Once that's done, it's nice and simple. You just get a bit of water on a paintbrush. You don't have to go crazy, and you moisten the back of that paper, that backing paper that's supporting it here. We run the brush round and it allows the separation of the two. You have to make sure you've pressed it nice and firmly beforehand, so then it's genuinely stuck down. Otherwise, when you take this off, there's a chance the letter will come off with it. But in this case, I've done well and I can peel it off. Really easy, really approachable, and if you're kind of scared of transfer work, this is kind of a nice way of getting into it, but still there's areas that can go wrong. Again, on the other side, we do the same again. It's an enjoyable process that you all have to have a go with. They do a number of different transfers, so check them out. Obviously, the water slide ones, there's nothing wrong with them. I've used them from time to time, they're fine. I just find this less messy and easy to use. After doing all of it, to seal in the transfers, I put on some Vallejo satin varnish, but over the whole model, I want to bring it up to a small amount of shine. I'm really proud of this art model. You're probably wondering, why am I weighing this? Well, I want to get that 20 grams onto the loco. It's 9.5 when you just measure the body, and I'm going to use some liquid gravity, which has got these kind of, I don't believe they're lead, it says it's non-toxic, but these heavy balls that you can drop into all various places and then you super glue in place. I just drop in some wet super glue, well, it is wet, but a thin super glue, not wet, and that will hold it in place. And as you can see, straight there, without adding the roof, and then with the roof, we end up adding a few grams right there. I've added it in the front and various other places that you won't quite see, and that's added some more weight to the model. I needed some cab plate numbers on the side, so I painted them gold, and once that's drying, I'm putting a bit of super glue into the cab here, because we're going to add some coal. And this, for me, is an enjoyable process. I happened to pick this up from a railway at one point when it was on the floor and needed, and that one block's lasted me a long time. With that in, I'd used some isopropyl alcohol and some white glue, and that's holding it in. With these nameplates, I added a bit of black to then obviously make the gold stand out, and then we glue it in place. It's nice and easy. I'm kind of really happy I've done this. I did buy some Fox transfers nameplates for a model that I've done before, but on this 3D printing, something really quick. Actually, it looks alright. Yes, it could be a bit better, but I think it's fine. Now we're going to add some of our white metal men, which would be great for adding a bit more weight onto the model, though it does make it wheeliest a bit more, so maybe it's not good. But they don't fit in, so I'm cutting legs off to get them to fit in. I'll be cutting off feet and whatever it takes to slot it in next to that motor on the model. Once that's done and I've decapitated many parts, I just give it a white primer. I use some Rail Match white primer acrylic and I paint it on by hand. I kind of do 2 coats on this until I feel that it's covered the model and I can't see the silver through. And once that's done, I mix up some blues. So I go for kind of a lighter blue. So I get some darker blue. I get it to the point that it's lighter. And I'll do the jackets with a lighter blue and then the trousers with a darker blue. Not that you're going to see the trousers. The idea of this is that the jackets would be washed a lot more than the trousers, from what I understand, and so you'll have that lighter top and darker bottom. The hats will be in black, as you can see, and then I don't really play too much with it. I put a couple of highlights on later to make it stand out. Painted the hair brown, put a moustache on, and then used some Citadel Gilliman flesh shade or flesh tone to the skin. Just get that from Games Workshop. Works out quite nicely, and it picks out details where you need it. Then drop the models in. I hold them in with blue tack. It seems to be fine. I can get them out easily later on if I need to. But this model I am really happy with. It looks the parts. It's going to look great on the railway. And yeah, it's always nice to get into these things. But what I do is I give you a couple of running shots. And hopefully you've enjoyed what you've seen. So I hope you like this model. I love it, and I want to make a larger scale one of this at one point, and maybe you'll see it. I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons and my channel members. Your support is, well, I can't thank you enough. It pushes me along, it motivates me, and it keeps me going, so thank you. If you want to become a patron or a channel member, the links are below. If not, become a subscriber if you're not already. Click that like button if you like it, and even leave me a comment. Let me know if you liked it and what else you would like to see in the future. Thank you again. See you soon. Bye.